Hello, and welcome to the NCNW Good Health Wins Media Bootcamp. I'm Synovia Moss, Project Manager for the Good Health Women's Immunization Networks, or Good Health Wins, program with the National Council of Negro Women. I bring greetings to you on behalf of our President and CEO, the incomparable Janetta Besh Cole, and our amazing Executive Director, Janice L. Mathis, Esquire. They lead us by setting the vision and managing a talented team at our headquarters staff. Many of you may meet today. At NCNW, we say that teamwork makes the dream work, and we are better together. So our team has been dispatched to different NCNW events and assignments throughout the country today to meet NCNW's mission to lead, empower, and advocate for women of African descent, their families, and communities. Welcome to our NCNW state and section leaders and members throughout the country, our national affiliate organization, Good Health Wins National Network Partners, and our special partnership with the National Pan-Atlantic Council, also known as the Divine Nine. We are excited and thank each and every one of you for sharing your time with us today. So let's get started. The origins of boot camp reach back as far as we can recall when we see genuine military training. For centuries, soldiers and armies everywhere have been expected to be in good shape with strong endurance. Boot camps are short-term, intense training sessions designed to prepare participants for the practical reality of development. You can find all kinds of boot camps from the military, education, fitness, technology, all kinds of areas, just to name a few, and a host of other kinds of intense trainings. But whatever you want, there's a boot camp out there for you. So today, our boot camp will focus on media training for some or refreshing media expertise for others. Media is defined as the main means of mass communication, whether it be broadcasting, publishing, and or the internet, regarded collectively. So as we build out our army of trusted messengers in Good Health Wins who help to provide accurate COVID-19 and flu information to vaccine hesitant family, friends, and community members, we want you to master the media to share information about vaccines and testing clinics around the US, or more importantly, to celebrate the wonderful Good Health Wins programs and projects to encourage vaccine testing and hopefully to help end this pandemic. This morning, I have the pleasure of introducing several of our panelists, but I'd like to begin with our NCNW Good Health Wins Program Administrator, Ajua Osei. Ms. Osei will be one of your major interfaces as your support team with Good Health Wins. Ms. Ajua joined the National Council of Negro Women Staff in 2021 as the program administrator after previously working at UMBC training centers as an experienced coordinator providing support to students, staff, and instructors. She also currently works as an events associate with Infatuating Affairs, and my apologies, in helping with affairs event planning. She's also a native of Prince George's County, Maryland. She attended Lipstone University, where she has studied political science. She is absolutely phenomenal. You are going to love working with her, and we are delighted to welcome this morning our NCNW Good Health Wins Program Administrator, Ms. Ajua Osei. Ms. Osei?
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Ms. Moss, for that wonderful introduction. Like she said, we are so glad to have you guys with us this afternoon, and I will go over quickly our agenda as well as some housekeeping. So for the remainder of the webinar, you will be on mute just to make sure that we can hear all of our panelists. Well, if you do have any questions at all, please feel free to enter them into the chat. Today we'll be hearing from a variety of people. We'll be hearing from our NCNW communications team, as well as our national partners at Vaccinate Your Family, as well as our partners from MCMG. So you guys have so many different things in store for you this afternoon, and we are so glad for you guys to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osei. Well, I tell you, I'm excited that we're having this boot camp today, and we want this to be an engagement experience for you. So please, one of the things that you can do is put your information into the chat, or feel free to ask us questions. With us today are participants who are new to media outlets, novice participants who want to learn more about media in general, as well as media professionals who are experts, who are very media savvy. So we're going to cover the what to do, when to do it, who to interface with, and how to engage the media. Special thanks to our presenters who each bring passion, expertise, and do media every day. So let's level set today's media boot camp with a high level recap of Good Health Wins. Good Health Wins is NCNW's grant funded program from the Centers for Disease Control, partnering with national organizations to increase vaccine coverage across racial and ethnic adult populations currently experiencing disparities. Within the Good Health Wins is a network of national and local partners. As part of year one for this engagement, of course, we want to eventually bring on all of our NCNW sections, as well as our affiliate members. We currently are operating in 11 states: Georgia, Texas, Mississippi, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. But we also pick up the national footprint with our Divine Nine colleagues. We have our national partners, Vaccinate Your Family, and the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Council. We have several national affiliate organizations: the National Black Nurses Association, the Links Incorporated, Swing by Swing Social Fellowship, the Continental Societies, Legims, Top Ladies of Distinction, and of course, the Divine Nine Black Greek letter organizations. GHW, Good Health Wins, it's a collaboration which shows that we are better together to work towards the reduction of health disparities, increased vaccine opportunities, vaccine education, and the identifiers of vaccine hesitancy. We are better together in our committed goals to help Black and Brown communities of color. In media terms, togetherness is co-branding. Shared logos, collateral materials like flyers, infographics, radio spots, etc. Leading the charge for us at national headquarters is our very own Director of Communications, Mr. Kevin Johannes. We are so excited that we have this leadership at headquarters, as he is also called Mr. J. Mr. J has served as the e-communications manager for the City of Atlanta, overseeing the city website, multimedia graphic design, social media strategy and implementation, and photography under both Mayor Shirley Franklin and Kasim Reed. After serving in the United States Air Force, Mr. J worked with several different agencies and television stations in various capacities, including art director, writer, cameraman, editor, media specialist, consulting, and show producer. In Atlanta, Johannes has worked with shows like the Trumpet Awards, the BET Hip Hop Awards, and the Soul Train Awards. He also worked on projects with film industry professionals like Rainforest Films, Tyler Perry Studios, Sony Filmworks, and TriStar Pictures. He was honored to be the talent tracking coordinator of the 2012 Charlotte Democratic National Convention. Johannes combines his love for service and the media industry to work with organizations and nonprofits who cater to youth, in the hope that his experience and insight would enhance and inspire their creativity, as well as expose them to all facets of entertainment. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kevin Johannes.
Thank you for that introduction. Hello, everyone. If you are having any issues with your information or your computer with GoToWebinar, I would suggest you go out and come back in. It sometimes does lag. However, if you have any questions for us during this evening, there is a tab either on the right side of your tablet or on the right or lower the right side of the menu where you can type in your questions, and we will get to your questions as we go throughout the webinar.
Mr. Johannes, we are so excited for you to be able to share with us some of the important things that we should know about co-branding NCNW and Good Health Wins.
It would be my pleasure. Would you like me to do that now?
Yes, we're ready.
Okay, I'm going to take over the screen and change PowerPoint just a minute. And here we go.
Thank you. And while we're waiting, we just want to let you know that this is a live broadcast. It will be recorded and uploaded to the NCNW Good Health Wins .org website. So please know that you'll have an opportunity to go back and refresh and touch base and ask additional questions. And of course, if you'd like additional information to contact us, you can do so either to myself or Ms. Ajwa. Mr. Johannes?
Okay, what you see before you, and please let me know if you do see it. We have 3 areas of branding guidelines that we're going to cover very quickly here. It is the colors, and that's the colors of the Good Health Wins logo and how you can integrate it. The fonts that are used and also positioning. Starting with the colors, the primary colors, as you can see here, are really there's 2 primary colors and there's a secondary backup color, and we call them the peach and the plum uh, colloquially, but as you can see, it's Pantone 520 and Pantone 162C. We've given you the breakdown of the color values so that you can use them whether you're on the web, whether you're using professional software like Adobe, or you're using any other thing. Because there's a lot of free softwares you can do like Canva, and they ask for the specific color breakdown for RGB, so we provided that for you. Um, just as a note on the bottom, if you have trouble with the Pantone colors, that's why it's broken down for you. Now, as far as positioning, as you can see, excuse me, on fonts, we use 2 major fonts to the logo, and that is actually in the same family, which is the Azo Sans family. We use the bold and the medium, excuse me, the black and the medium. And what we've done here is we've provided a link for you so that you can get these fonts for free. And this branding guide will also be in the GHW Wins toolkit and the GHW Wins communications folders on GHWGoodHealthWins.org. So there's no need to take notes or try to get that down because it'll be right there. As far as positioning, I've used a logo that I'm familiar with, but you can see how you can take your organization's logo and put it right on the right side. The primary position for GHW Wins would be to the far left. Sometimes if we are with a bunch of logos, we try to get to the left. We may or may not. If we're not the primary, we usually are in the second or third position. And then we have a couple alternate logos for you because in social media, the long vertical logo doesn't always work. And as I said, all this information and logo is in the GH Wins Toolkits and Communications Branding Guide, and provided a link to that here as well. And last but not least, please, as you're designing, be creative. Think about the elements. What is the ask? What is the reason you're doing it? If it doesn't capture your attention, then it's probably not going to capture theirs. Also provided for you is a handout that one of our staff members, Ms. Allen, has put together called Social Media One-on-One. It's in the handout section as a part of this webinar. It gives you some how-tos on the big 3, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you have any questions for me after this and they're not answered, please, by all means, you see at the bottom my email address. Do not hesitate to contact me.
Thank you so much for that overview, Mr. Johannes. And if we have the capacity, Ms. Ajwa, if we could show them the Good Health Wins website and the toolkit. Two things that we would like to do in today's session is to make sure that you have some really practical and tactical ways to approach the media. We know that you are already interfacing with the media, so we just want to either show you some quick tips or to provide refresher information for you as well. So again, if you'd like more information regarding Good Health Wins, this is our Good Health Wins website. Ms. Ajwa, would you like to walk them through that, please?
Yes, so as you can see here, we are specifically on the information page. So when you go to the website at the top, you will see the tabs, home, about us, focus areas, COVID-19, and information. Under information, when you click media, you'll see the toolkit as well as the branding materials, excuse me. So like Mr. Johannes mentioned, any of the logos or the colors or anything that you might be looking for would all be here. So you have buttons, stickers, and flyers, the logos and background information. And they are all here for you to use and to practice with and play around with. And like Ms. Moss mentioned as well, you do have the toolkit. So once you click the toolkit, it will take you to that in the drive as well. So these are all resources that are available to you on our Good Health Wins website. And like both Ms. Moss and Mr. Johannes mentioned, everything that is shown here will be uploaded to the website as well, so you will be able to find them there.
Thank you for that. So we want this to be very hands-on. So first and foremost, if you've not had an opportunity to peruse the NCNW Good Health Wins website, it's goodhealthwins.org. Again, goodhealthwins.org. Please visit that as a wonderful resource and tool for you all to get additional information regarding how to co-brand. As we are proceeding through this media boot camp, I want to start off by asking you all to please put your information into the chat if you have the capacity to do that. Please put your name, your state and or your organization or your section into the chat because we want to engage you in this opportunity. The other thing that we would like for you to do is I would like for you all to maybe have a pen or pencil nearby to get some of these quick tips or be able to put this into your repository because they're simple reminders of ways that we can boost the wonderful work that we're doing at NCNW. One of the things that I'd like to begin with is something that I did is that whenever we are hosting an event, I try to go into my personal database to get the help to identify, whether it be speakers or media, etc. So anytime we're hosting an event, I go into my database. Back in the day, we used to call it our Rolodex to really get started. So, as the CEO of Moss Consulting and Management Group, we specialize in coordinating large scale programs and initiatives on the local, statewide, national, and global levels. Our work at MCMG crosses sectors like healthcare, education, nonprofits, and a slew of other areas to enable our clients like NCNW to be successful. During our project management engagements, we bring together experts from across the globe and throughout the country in all fields of what we call subject matter experts. As you know, we are better together. So our first guest, our panelist that I'd like to introduce, when we talk about we are better together, she and I have probably been working on projects together over the last 2 or so decades. Faith Colas is a true media practitioner. Her media experience covers print media, radio show host, broadcast television host, community and public relations. She has a 30-year career in print media as the publisher of the Milwaukee Courier newspaper. She's the president of Vaughn Communications, LLC, a public relations business that specializes in community engagement, public and media relations. Bond Communications was founded by her late husband, radio host, political commentator, and community advocate Eric Bond. So you can see Faith has been living media almost all her life. Faith is media in action. She is known as the optimistic radio host on a show called There's Always Something Good to Talk About, a Saturday morning talk show on WNOV 860 AM radio in Milwaukee. The radio show focuses on good works and changing the narrative about Milwaukee and African American people. She's also the host of I'm Every Woman, a Friday morning show featuring conversation with local and national women of distinction from every walk of life. She is a former host of Milwaukee Public Television's award-winning Black Nouveau, the 4th County Potawatomi Foundation Advisory Board, and the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund. She's also a member of the National Council of Negro Women Milwaukee section, the Wisconsin Black Media Association, and the Milwaukee Press Club, and the Public Relations Society of America. But Faith is also in media. She's what we call on the ground. Faith joined the Salvation Army in the winter of 2007 as the community relations director for Milwaukee County. In her role, in her role at the Salvation Army, I should say, she served as the National Public Relations Officer during the tornado disaster recovery effort in Joplin, Missouri in 2011. And in 2012, she coordinated the national media at the Sikh temple shooting in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, and the Azana Salon shooting in Brookfield, Wisconsin. So she is here today to help us to understand some quick tips that we should do as we're interfacing with the media. She's experienced in all types of media. So we wanted Faith to be able to join us today to talk about print tips, radio tips, TV tips, and then we will be joined by Erica DeWall, who's going to share with us information specifically about our social media strategies. So good morning or good afternoon, and we welcome you. Please welcome Faith Colas.
Thank you, Synovia. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I'm excited to be here this afternoon, and I hope that all the information that you all will receive today, I really believe that you will be able to execute it and put into action right away. Some you may already be doing, but some may be a reminder of what you can do, and some information will be brand new. So you have a story that you want to get out. Here are 7 tips to support your pitch. Journalists, reporters, talk show hosts, they like true stories, and nothing can be more truer than COVID-19 and the vaccine, okay? So just keep that in mind. There may be some aspects of the story or people that you're serving in your community where someone may want to or be willing to share their story. That's a true story, and reporters like that because they don't have to do that work. You're kind of already coming to them with your true story and everything all set up. A question that you should ask yourself is your story for television, radio, or print? And would your story be more attractive to your neighbors? So if those are questions that you can answer yes to, you may also want to include public radio and public television in your pitches. Most television stations now have segments of their daily news and their weekend programming that focuses on community and soft news information. So if say, for example, you have a media event, a media advisory or a news conference, and you want to get on the mainstream news, but you haven't made the 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock news, talk to the news director or the assignment desk or a reporter that you know about getting on the weekend programming, okay? Keep your pitch short in conversation in an email or a text message. As a radio host, I prefer text messages and then emails, but always follow up with whoever you're sending a written communication to with a phone call. So be sure that you have all of that information when you're sending your pitch via text, email, or in as you have your conversation. Be specific. Tell the newsroom or reporter why your story would be of interest to their readers, their listeners, or their viewers. Be ready to, kind of 1, 2, 3 those points, because depending on what breaking news is happening, you may or may not get the kind of time that you want with the news director or the person on the other end. Let the newsroom or reporter know if the story is time sensitive. That's important as they make their plans for the day. You can call the newsrooms and radio stations, and whether print or television or radio, and ask them what is their schedule for deciding what time they're going to make decisions. Some newsrooms by 8:30, everyone that's part of the news team, they're in a meeting deciding what stories they're going to cover. So you should know that information. So when you're sending out your media advisories or your news releases, you can get optimum response from them. So it's really important that you put that information in there. Don't write, email, or text your opinion. Save that for a letter to the editor or the news director or the general manager. Not that those items aren't valuable, but they have specific people that they go to. And if you send your opinion to a reporter, it's not something that they can cover unless you have a personal relationship with them and you're going to ask that reporter to kind of hand carry it to the general manager because you haven't quite made that relationship yet. But otherwise, save it for the editor, news director, or the general manager. And feel free to send attachments in your emails. Write in the email that you have an attachment of a photograph or a map or a document. You want to be able to communicate to the communicators, make it as easy as possible for who you're communicating to, provide them as much information. And if they have an attachment, a lot of times they're going through all these emails, say they're getting 50 or 60 or 70 or 100 emails a day. If there's something there that you want them to pay attention to, you have to let them know that in your communication. Next slide, please. Now, this is a sample of a very good media advisory. Notice that we've already talked about the branding piece. That's really important when you're sending over media advisories to newsrooms. They're looking for who it's coming from. And if you have a relationship, that just kind of moves you right to the top of the list, okay? But if you don't have a relationship and you don't have a branding, your information on stationery, it's really kind of going to get lost. Let them know it's a media advisory. Be sure you have the date on there. Let them know who the groups are, what's going to happen at this news conference, okay? Let them know some background, the summary. As you can see here, that information is well spelled out. So you can, that's considered the background information because people want to know. Newsrooms turn over quite a bit. Sometimes the schedule of reporters turn over. So you may want to be, that information there will be very important, the background and the summary. So you may want to always have that there because you don't know who's going to be in the newsroom. And of course you will, because when you send this media advisory out along with a news release, you always want to follow up with the newsroom to be sure that they received it. In your media advisory, as is listed here, you want to put who's going to be speaking so that reporters know how to schedule, and maybe they may reach out to you to say, yeah, hey, I want to have a specific interview after the news conference with Synovia Moss. And then you want to tell them what it is and where it is and what time it is. And in this case, it was a virtual news conference. Always put your contact information, even if it's someone you know. They may pass it on to someone. So you have a relationship with the news director or the assignment newsroom, but they're going to pass it on to someone. So that person that they pass it on to may not know you, and they may have a question. So it's very important to have the contact information there, and then always put the social media information there, because the reporter may then follow you on your social media en route to your news conference or post your news conference. They'll want to be able to follow you. That's just another way of maintaining and building relationships. And then if this were a news release, you would want to post it on your social media so that if there's a reporter that, for whatever reason, missed getting to your news conference, they can see the content of the news release and follow back up with you there again and give you a story. Next slide, please. So here are some media advisory tips. Your media list should also include influencers. So media reporters, your newsroom people, influencers, everyone that is in the social media space that would be considered an influencer, you may want to consider adding them to your media list. You'll have to get their email address to do that. But also an influencer could be the president of your local NAACP, the president of your local urban league, the common council president, your state legislators, your city, county political leadership. Those are influencers. You want to keep them abreast to what's going on. Even if they don't show up at your news conference, they know what's happening, what you're doing, and what you're saying in the community as well. Be sure that there are no duplicates on your media list. And this is something that you have to keep up with pretty much weekly, because there are reporters that are moved around in newsrooms. They change television or radio stations frequently. Many of them may have podcasts, and so they're no longer in a broadcast space, in your traditional broadcast space. So if you're sending out an email, a media blast, you send it out in the BCC line, so no one sees all of those email addresses. That's your own personal information and your own personal, I kind of call it intellectual property. You know, my media list and my list of influencers, it's kind of my intellectual property. And so you want to keep that in the BCC line. But when you get those bounce backs, you need to delete those folks right away and then find out who the new person is as soon as you possibly can, because you want to stay connected to members of the media. Keep your list updated. As I mentioned, news professionals move around frequently. Follow individuals on your media list in social media. That's something that you'll want to do and just kind of follow up on every day. When you get a new reporter, when I'm at a news conference, I would add them right on the spot. The moment I met them or meet them, I will follow them on Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever they are. So that might be something that if you haven't done that, that's very important, because you can stay connected to the reporter. You can see other areas of news that they're covering. Something might fall into their lane that is of interest to you and falls within your expertise, your lane of what it is you're doing as it relates to COVID and the vaccine and any other important effort that your organization or business is doing. As I mentioned earlier, you want to be sure that you post your news releases on your social media channels. In LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. You want to be able to do that so that all those people that are following you, they can stay abreast to what it is that you're doing and how you are engaging the community. And also, this helps you as part of your pitch when you're talking to reporters or newsroom assignment editors or the assignment desk, you want to say, listen, you can feel free to add me to your subject matter expert list. They're always looking to expand that. So we are experts in the COVID and vaccine arena. So add them, call them and ask them to add you to that subject matter expert list and any other subject matter expert list where you would like to stay in the news in your community and nationally. The next slide, please. Media opportunities. So, and we can go to the next slide. Thank you. As a radio personality now and host of a show, two shows, I always like for people to ask the radio host about the listeners. You know, some people come to a particular radio host that they only talk politics, right? So if you have a health focus, that may not be the perfect show or radio personality or host for your subject matter. So find out, be sure you understand what that radio host is all about and what their show is all about. When you're doing, when you have secured a radio interview, you want to ask, how long will the interview be? Let me give you an example. We had recently on one of the shows here at WNOV a guest that was scheduled for 15 minutes, but they stayed for the entire 2 hours of the show. That's great, but do you have the time? So know, number one, how long the show could be. Number two, if there's some flexibility in your schedule, if you're asked to stay longer, and if you are asked to stay longer, say, yes, I can stay for another 15 minutes. Be happy to continue to talk with your listeners. But if you're on a strict schedule, you also want to know for your schedule and your admin, your executive admin, that you don't make that person crazy, but you know how long your interview is scheduled for. Always arrive at least 15 minutes early. And I say that because sometimes the guest of the radio host, the previous guest, didn't show up, and it might leave the radio host scrambling for some content. So here you are, maybe you can come in a little earlier and, you know, add in some time along with your scheduled time. Look professional, be pleasant, be well dressed, be the way you want to be seen in public. I say that because a lot of radio hosts now do Facebook Live. So even though it's radio and listeners don't see you, there's usually a Facebook Live component going on in a radio studio. Along with that, you want to always remember that the mic is always live. What does that mean? It's hot. It means people can hear everything that you're saying. So even if you're going to a commercial or the host or the engineer or the producer has said, we're going to commercial, things happen. And so you want to be sure that you always say something that's appropriate. Even if you think you're off air, just remember that there's a possibility that that can happen. Ask the interviewer, the host, the producer, is this a live or taped interview? The reason for that is if it's a taped interview and you say something that you would like to say a different way, you can say, oh, let me stop right here and let me start over. I'd like to say it this way. And that's the same for television interviews as well. If it's live, that means whatever you say, if that's not what you want to say, you have to, you know, make that pitch, that pivot right away. Okay. So just so that you know that there's a difference. And also, if there is a taped interview, whether it's on the radio or on television, there could be some editing that can be done. So retakes. One tip that I like to do when I'm doing taped interviews is, and I'm asking, being asked a question, I like to repeat the question. So if someone says, Faith, tell us about your upbringing. And so then my answer would be, that's a wonderful question. Let me tell you a little bit about my upbringing. I was born in blah, 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 blah. So that gives them some feedback and some space, if you will, some cush, if you will, when they're doing some editing. And it helps the producer and the editor know where in the interview they are and how they want to put the final product together. Ask if the interview will be on Facebook Live. I think that when you go in, if you forget to ask this question, you should always assume that Facebook Live is happening in the space. But if you remember to ask, please do so. And that happens a lot. At news conferences, Facebook Live is going on. And I'm telling you, whether you're on the camera or not, people hear all the stuff that is going on around you, so they hear the question, oh, let's go have coffee. The news conference is over, but the Facebook Live piece is still happening, and it may not be on anyone, but you can hear voices going on around. So be sure that you are absolutely away from the event and in an automobile headed someplace else before you start talking. Ask if it's an in-person or telephone interview that you're having on the radio. And you can do this for television as well, especially during the pandemic. It's made it possible for television to do in-person and telephone interviews. And for the telephone interview, you want to be sure that you are not on speakerphone and that you can hear very clearly, because on speakerphone with radio, you get feedback, and so you don't want that to happen. If it's an in-person interview, then that you need to look a certain kind of way, right? And if it's a telephone interview, you may consider, if it's a telephone interview, but it's on television, right? You want to be sure that you provide the broadcast station a good photograph of yourself. Okay, so there's an image of you, even though you're not actually on the television, they can hear your voice. Remember the name of the host. That's very important. That you remember who it is that you're interviewing. That can be a little difficult unless you're, an expert and you're used to doing 15, 10, 20 interviews in a day. But if you're new to it, always jot down who you're going to be speaking to. Ask for a link of the show afterwards so that you can post it to your social media channels, YouTube, add it to your media portfolio, your media library, so that you can go back to it. You can look at it, you can review it, you can share it with others within the organization and get some tips and always make yourself better. Thank you all very much. I hope there was some information in here that you will find useful. And I just want to add another piece, another component, that when you're doing media advisories or news releases, feel free to consider blackprwire.com. They have access to over 30,000 African American journalists and bloggers. So visit their website, blackprwire.com.
Well, Faith, thank you so much for that overview of handling just some quick tips, media tips to help our participants during this media boot camp. One of the things that some takeaways from your presentation, first and foremost, relationships matter, and that
Absolutely.
you don't wait until your event to create those relationships with your media outlets. I know that through the years, as you're saying, I too, as soon as I meet a media person, not only do I get their information in real time, I try to circle back with them to see if I can do an introductory lunch, a meet and greet with our key people, just so that we can stay high on their radar so that when we send things over to them. In regards to Good Health Wins, the purpose of this boot camp today is to really help us to think about how do we put legs to the work that we're doing. So we're doing all this wonderful programs and projects and information, but it all begins with how many people can we touch as trusted messengers? We have our low touch, where it is us having these one-on-one conversations with our family and friends and relatives and community folks. But we also have the media side of this, which is our high touch, which could be broadcast radio, television, print, etc. Get to know your local community editors, all of those small community and neighborhood newspapers as well.
Absolutely.
They are more likely to pick up your stories than sometimes those large organizations. The other thing that I love in your slides, and everybody, the slides are going to be sent to you. They'll be uploaded to our Good Health Wins website under resources. I love the fact that you said on there, I think I counted 7 or 8, ask, 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 which
Yes.
means we need to take the initiative to go to the media and not assume that the media will hear about something great that we're doing and come to us. So
Oh, absolutely.
take the initiative. You want to talk about that a little bit about, just what skill set we have to have, even though we're not may not necessarily be trained to interface with the media, but what does it take from us to be able to get the word out?
Wow, that's a really great question. And that's a really great point that you were able to pull from the presentation. It's so important that we build relationships, and it's constant, it's constant. Sometimes you'll be at an event, it'll just be a casual event, and you see reporters. Walk over to them and say, "Hey, Amanda, so good to see you again. That's a great story that you did last week." When you're following them in the social media space, retweet and like different things that they do. They see that, trust me. They see that, they see who's doing that. When you pick up a phone and you call a news station, ask for the reporter. I always send a thank you note to a reporter when they cover a story for me. I take time to build that relationship. After the news conference, I take time to talk with them. Hey, John, how the kids did? How was that trip that you made last week? Just so they remember you. Most people do not send thank you notes. They don't send a thank you email or a thank you text. They just assume this is your job and you're going to do it. But move ahead of the line and let people know how much you appreciate them covering the story.
Thank you. And then
May I
another thing
interject
I
as well?
just wanted to share is that the Good Health Wins initiative, this is a wonderful example of how collaborations take place. And so please, really, you could tag team some of the media with those
With your
co-branded
partners.
logos and
Yes,
partners. And so you want to also not assume that they know about your organization. Many
that's right.
folks may not know the history of the National Council of Negro Women, our 85-year history, our footprint all across the United States, the way that we are an umbrella organization for other national organizations. So you want to be able to have your pitch ready to go in case you get, when you make that phone call and they'll say, who are you? Why are you important? Why is this relevant to you? And then you can help them pitch a story by saying, I saw that you just ran a story on this. Here is the community engagement. And
Exactly.
then we can kind of fit that mode as well. So you just really want to make them your friend. The media is your friend.
Right. They're your friend.
They're your friends.
May I interject as well?
Mr.
I'd like to
Johannes,
say
you
that,
have some other things? Yes.
yes, being in the media for a while, I know that reporters change, stations change a lot. You also want to get on the radar of the news director,
Yes.
because they're probably going to be there for several years, and they make the decision in partnering with organizations, as well as the assignment editor, who's going to usually be there for 4 or 5 years at a time. Same thing with newspapers. Find out who the editor in chief is and making them your ally, because like reporters move a lot. They might be at one station today, be across the country the next day, but the news directors, the editors in chief, the editors are the people who stay usually at the company for a long period of time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Faith, any closing comments? And we're going to keep the chat open. Mr. Johannes, are you able to share any questions that are coming through the chat?
The question was asked, what was the name of that website that you asked people to go to?
blackprwire.com. blackprwire.com.
Thank you so much. And we're placing that into the chat. And then I also had a question like, okay, so how do you get the phone numbers of the reporters to send the text to?
Oh, well, you know what when they are at the news conference or at an event, I will ask them for their phone number. I will ask them for their card, and I will put that in my book, in my phone. I add that to my list. And you can do the same with the news directors. News directors, the assignment desk, you can get their cell numbers that way, their email addresses.
Thank you so much. Well, we're going to move along, and I just want to again thank you, Mr. Johannes. Thank you, Faith Colas. Please, stay on standby because we consider you all as our panel of experts today. And I am just so delighted to be able to introduce our next panelist and to say thank you, thank you, thank you, because Vaccinate Your Family has been with the National Council of Negro Women from day one on this Good Health Wins initiative. And with this, I believe the very first phone call to really set this whole thing in motion was a call between Erica DeWall, Cecilia, and myself. And so we just kind of laugh about, how this all came together and just really celebrate the beauty of collaborations. So Erica DeWall joined Vaccinate Your Family as the Director of Strategic Communications and Partnerships in 2021 after working as a consultant to the organization for 15 years. She's led Vaccinate Your Family's efforts at both the state and federal level to educate legislatures, media, and the public about the value of vaccines. She works with media to identify and develop stories on vaccines, particularly on issues related to the funding and the influence of vaccine critics. That's the anti-vaxxers. Her stories have appeared in such diverse outlets as the Washington Post, Vice, the Associated Press, and Jezebel. Vaccinate Your Family has been a leader in social media on vaccine issues. They launched the first pro-vaccine Facebook page in 2008 and now have close to 200,000 followers. Many of the advocates and interviews on television today became involved in vaccine advocacy after becoming a part of their community on the Facebook page. We are just so delighted. If you have not joined Vaccinate Your Family, they do something called daily clips. Erica, hope you tell us about that as well. But please welcome Erica DeWald with Vaccinate Your Family.
Well, thank you so much, Zenobia, and thank you everyone for joining today. It's such an honor to be here, and I certainly learned a lot from Ms. Colas's presentation, so thank you for that. Today, I just want to go over a few basic tips. I know that you guys have a fabulous handout on social media, but I just wanted to go over a few tips about how social media can be different when we talk about vaccines. So rather than just watching some of the posts, how do we get involved and get involved in a way that's safe for ourselves and our organization? The next slide, please. The first thing to remember is that we have to find the right platform. Who are you trying to reach? And based on who are you trying to reach, where should you be? Facebook is skewing older these days. They still have, as you can see, almost 3 billion followers, but not all of those followers are active. If we're trying to reach younger folks, parents, you might see my child wander in the background at some point during this presentation, we're on Instagram, right? If you're looking for professionals, if you want to reach those doctors, the scientists, researchers, and reporters, they're most active on Twitter. And then, of course, we have the very young folks that, well, they're very young to me anyway at this point in my life, the teenagers who are on TikTok and Snapchat, right? And that's where a lot of misinformation is actually found on those platforms because the information appears and disappears so quickly. But depending on who you're trying to reach, just narrow down on what platform makes the most sense because we can't be on all of these, right? It's such an investment to be on even one of these. We really have to narrow down on what will be most effective. Next slide, please. So there are two ways to interact in social media. There's as an individual and then as an organization. As an individual is usually how I interact, right? We have our business accounts, obviously, our Vaccinate Your Family accounts, but I also have my own personal account. The first thing I need every single person to do, whether you're talking about vaccines or something else, check your privacy settings. Nobody should be able to see your individual personal social media that you don't want them to see it, right? I narrowed down on all of my platforms to friends only, people that I have friended. And remember, if you're going to accept a friend request, make sure you know who that person is, right? If you've never seen this person, you've never heard of this person, please don't let them onto your social media. You don't know who they are. You don't know why they're trying to friend you, right? So just some basic safety things, regardless of whether you're working on vaccines or not. The other thing is the tone of your social media. Always respond to folks on social media the way you would in real life. A lot of what's wrong with social media today is people feeling like they're somehow protected or they're safe, and that they can say whatever they want. They can have what sort of attitude and tone that they want as a result of that. And then finally, hide and block. If somebody is saying something that you don't agree with, just block them, right? They don't have to be your friends. You don't have to be friends with everybody on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Get rid of those messages if you don't agree with it. If you start talking about vaccines and somebody comes on your page and starts saying, oh, it's Bill Gates, oh, you know, it's the mark of the beast, just delete the comment. You don't have to leave it up there, right? And finally, remember, if you post something about vaccines and somebody starts posting misinformation, you're probably not going to change that person's mind. You may, but it's less likely. You are responding for all the people who are watching and listening to that post, as opposed to the person who's answering the question. Next slide. It's a little different when you're coming from the perspective of an organization as opposed to an individual. The number one rule here, right, because you want everybody to see these posts, so you're not going to be so selective about who's following you and who isn't following you. What you have to do is you have to have a very strong media comment policy in place. And I'm happy to share yours through Mr. Johannes and the Good Health Wins program. So making sure that it's clear to folks that you have the right to hide their comments, to remove their comments, and to block them on your account if they do certain things. So for example, vaccinate your family, if you start doing personal attacks, if you start using inappropriate language, we can remove you. And so if anybody says, oh, they're censoring, you know, oh, I got blocked, well, here's our comment policy and you violated that. And we remind people on a regular basis of that comment policy. But, you know, for the most part, we try and keep a very positive tone on all of our social media posts about vaccines. We're trying to share the best, latest information on what's happening out there, what research is developing, if there are new policies in place. We've had a very, very busy week talking about boosters for COVID-19, as you can imagine. And every day it changed, right? FDA said one thing, ACIP said another. Now we've got, you know, the CDC director saying yet another. So we're trying to stay on top of that. Feel free to follow us for that information. But we also try and be non-judgmental. People have questions about vaccines, and that's okay. Why wouldn't you have questions about vaccines, right? Everything is so personalized right now, from car seats to where you're going to have dinner tonight, and yet we're telling you this is a one-size-fits-all policy. That should raise questions. And so we always view ourselves, and I hope you view yourselves as well, as a safe place to ask those questions. And then, you know, empower people on your page to become advocates in their own right. So share this information and invite people to share that information. Invite people to be a part of your events, as I know NCNW does so incredibly well. Next slide, please. So you'll sometimes get into situations where you say, okay, I posted something positive, right? Here's who's eligible for COVID-19 boosters. Here's who should go out and get those boosters. And then you get the post back. Well, that's fine, but you know, my mother got this vaccine and now she can't move, she's paralyzed. Now, you know, my cousin got this vaccine and now they can't have children, right? So these are sort of non sequiturs in many ways. People got the vaccine, something happened, but it's not necessarily because they're not necessarily related to the fact that they got a vaccine. Things happen, unfortunately. But we have to always respond with empathy. Whatever happened to somebody is awful, whether it's the caused by vaccines or not, right? We always have to lead with empathy. And then we can gently correct the record. Oh, that's awful, but we know that isn't a side effect of the vaccine, right? try and put it into context of what's happening and provide a reference. We always want people to start recognizing good sources of information. So we might link somebody to the CDC or FDA. We might link somebody to a local hospital or some other source of information that we know to be a good source of information. And then, expect those people to push back. They truly believe that their loved one was injured as a result of a vaccine, and we have to respect that, right? So let the conversation lie. If it gets out of hand, again, follow those comment policies. If they start cursing, if they start attacking you personally, then's the time to hide those comments. Next slide. So you have those personal stories, but a lot of people will come at you with these sort of general things. Vaccines can kill and maim and do all these horrible things. Again, be empathetic, but be strong in the knowledge that vaccines are safe and effective for 99.9% of people. So people will dismiss your sources, but again, constantly push people towards good sources of information. That's the ultimate goal of social media, right? To let people ask their questions and to give them access to good information about that. So in closing, I just want to say we need your help on social media. We need as many people as humanly possible on social media helping us. It is still the Wild West out there, and anyone can post anything. So the more we can do to get good sources of information and people knowledgeable about who to turn to, right? So they can turn to NCNW chapters, they can turn to Good Health Wins, and they can feel confident that the information they're getting on those posts is accurate. Help us in any way you can. I'm happy to take questions, but again, just wanted to give you a very basic overview of how we handle vaccine messaging on social media. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Erica. And again, I think it would be really helpful if you can share with our listeners and our participants a little bit about Vaccinate Your Family and why you all are the subject matter experts in what you do.
Sure. So Vaccinate Your Family has been working on vaccines for 30 years now. Back in the day when, everybody wanted to get vaccines and we had some access issues, we're still addressing some of those access issues, but now we're dealing with access to good information issues. And so we're available through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to answer questions. You can also sign up on our website for more information. We send out immunization alerts. So as soon as we have the information on things like COVID boosters, it comes right into your inbox. And we've been working with CDC and FDA for years on that. And as Zenobia, as we mentioned at the top of the call, we also have daily clips. You do have to email me personally for those. So it's Erica, ERICA, @vaccinateyourfamily.org. I'd be happy to make sure that you have the latest news on vaccines delivered to your inbox every single morning.
Thank you for that. And just a key takeaway is that one of the things you said in this social media world is that when you're responding to a post, you're responding to everyone, not just that one person who posted that. So really be very mindful of that. Just wanted to, as we've been in this immunization space and learning about immunization, especially coalitions work at the local, national, the statewide level. One of the things that we don't really teach or help others to understand is the anti-vaxxers and how they're moving on social media and some do's and don'ts with the anti-vaxxers. Can you share some tips with us for that?
Sure. So the anti-vaxxers like to do something called storming. They also do something called fire hosing, right? So what they will do is they have their own private groups. If we post something that they find particularly offensive, such as vaccines save lives, they can send the note out to all of their friends, and all of a sudden you get inundated with all of these people posting false information on your website. It happens rarely, but when it does happen, it can be a little overwhelming, right? Because you'll have people posting from all around the world. We have people in place to help you with that, right? So if you start posting about vaccines and it goes left really quickly, we are here to support you in that. But what I want you to remember is it's a small majority, right? There are single sources of information, anti-vaccine information. They have really well-established channels to then spread that quickly across social media. It's not based in fact, right? while we have to wait for the science, they're already out and around the world talking about whatever they want to talk about. But we're happy to help with that, right? And stay, again, to Synovia's point, thank you for emphasizing that. It's not the vast majority of people, it's just the loudest people. So please, if you do get attacked, know there are lots of people watching what you're saying and you're doing that believe in the science and believe in what you're doing. So don't let the anti-vaxxers scare you. Don't let the anti-vaxxers take you off message.
Thank you for that so much. So, wanted to go back and talk about media from the lens of you as an individual. So, thank you all for joining us today, and we wanted you to just see us in real time. And one of the things that we've learned through engaging with media through this pandemic is that we have had our lives turned upside down, and probably have all been on more Zoom events over the last few years, and who even knew about Zoom, the way that it has taken over our life and being in this virtual space. What are some tips that, and this is open to any of the panelists, what are some suggested tips or things that you all would suggest to really promote their individual programs, or things that they should know as individuals when they're on the Zoom platforms or in this virtual media space? And I'll start by saying one of them is, you know what, be real, keep it real. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to trip up on your words. It's not the end of the world.
That's right.
You just keep going. And it is, for me, just part of the learning curve that, here's what I'll do next time, but really, as long as we are able to communicate and to understand that we're here to be messengers and trusted messengers with Good Health Wins, that's really important. So any personal tips that you all would want to give anyone? Mr.
Yes.
John, let's start with you. I know.
I'll start with a couple things. One is, be confident in what you know, because when you're talking to people, like it's been said, you might not consider yourself the expert, but you know more than some of the people that you're reaching out to. So, but also be authentic in saying that you don't know everything. The other day was a
That's true.
webinar with the Surgeon General, who is top dog as far as I'm concerned, and he was honest in saying that he didn't know everything. One of the things I like about Dr. Fauci is, he'll refer to something as like, I don't know that, but let me get my team on it. So it's okay not to know everything, but know what you know, so that you either research the facts. You've been, I read Vaccinate Your Family every time it comes through. In fact, we're going to start pushing it out to all our NCNW members so that we can get that information out there, because they read all the CDC reports, all the other reports, and they break it down into something that can be digestible by Joe and Jane public. So, but know what but somebody's going to come at you at some point and test you. That's okay. It might be testing you because they want to know more information. They might be testing you because they're playing devil's advocate, and that's all right. But say the part you know correctly, and if you don't know the other piece, it's all right to admit that.
Absolutely. On the heels of what Mr. J is sharing, even in person, Zoom or at a news conference or in an interview, if you're asked a question, or if you're part of the support team, and say someone else from the organization or your business is being interviewed and that information isn't readily available, let the reporter know, we don't know that right now, but let me circle back around with you on that. So get the information and be sure that you do that. I would also say, when you're doing Zoom, not to eat and drink unless it's, a, a, a company or group meeting that you're having, and then I would always say to have a plain mug or something, so you're not advertising whatever it is that you are drinking. And also, something that I really appreciate on Zoom calls is being able to see everyone that is part of the call. I think that that's important in a professional space, that you see people, because if we were at a meeting, you'd be able to see everyone, so I would recommend that, as well as to make sure that your mobile phone is off.
Thank you. Erica?
The only thing I'll add, I mean, that's all great, but to the point of being real about it. So research has shown, because we all live in a Zoom world now, that the slicker the video production, the less people trust it now, right? So they want to see the real authentic you, right? So you don't have to have your hair done, you don't have to have your makeup done, you want to feel confident, but don't worry about how everything looks. They just want to know what you know. They just want to share in your knowledge.
They want
Wow.
the information, yes.
Thank you for that. Mr. Johannes, are there any other questions that have jumping out that you think that we might want to cover?
Yes, so the good question that just popped up. It
Okay.
says, are we permitted to create infographics in addition to those in the GHW toolkit? I'm going to answer this one, and I'm going to say yes. If you have the capacity to make infographics and you can help people digest the information by making some visual things, by all means, not only do it, but share it with us. Because that same infographic might spark the answer or something in someone else across the country.
Absolutely. And that will also be a wonderful segue in that the spirit of Good Health Wins is very akin to the spirit of how NCNW is as an organization. We are an umbrella organization for 32 national organizations. So we really do want to see the collaboration, the replication, so that we can share this work that we're doing together. Getting through COVID-19 is going to require all of us to be hands and hearts in this, boots on the ground, so that we can get to the end of this pandemic. We have got to be able to create that safe space where we can talk to each other and to be able to share, especially as we're communicating with the vaccine hesitant family and friends. We really want to, as Erica said, have that empathy to say, I'm not going to judge you that you haven't made your decision right now. I just want to make sure that you have the information that you need to make that informed decision. And then, of course, we want to be able to, as within Good Health Wins, refer people to those credible sources of information. So it's not that you heard it from your friend on Facebook and that makes it real, but that we do have it vetted in some capacity. And so, when we're putting our information out with Good Health Wins, we are delighted that our partners at Vaccinate Your Family and other organizations like the CDC, they're able to vet this information that we're sending out. So if it's coming out from us, someone in with a medical background has had eyes or an opportunity to review it, that we really want to make sure that we are authentic, credible, trusted messengers on the ground. We invite everyone to join us for our bi-monthly webinars that we host every first and third Thursday of every month. We try to provide a high level update of what's happening in the field around the vaccine space, to try to keep you apprised of what's going on in the media. And our goal is to really inform you of also what's coming up so that you can prepare for that. And during these bi-monthly webinars, one of my favorite pieces of this now is what we call show and share, so that as our state leaders and org sections and our national affiliate partners, they're able to lift up the wonderful work that they're doing with Good Health Wins across the country. And again, if you have the opportunity to replicate something, we want to make sure that those tools, those resources, those graphics, they're available for you, but also those connections with each other. Because again, we are in this together and we are better together. So when we say our mantra, teamwork makes the dream work, we mean that with you all as well. We are a repository and want to be your support network in the work that you're doing to lift up Good Health Wins, as well as the wonderful work of the National Council of Negro Women. After this webinar, this training, this boot camp, you'll have an opportunity to take a brief survey. So again, your input is very important to us, that as we design our work, we want you all to be a part of that engagement. It is not us just telling you what to do. You all are on the ground. You know what's happening in your communities. You know what works. You have those relationships. And we just want to be able to lift up and support you in the work that you're doing. I am just so happy to say that, we survived boot camp. Boot camp might have been intense information, but it just reminds us that we are real, that it's authentic work that we have to do, that it is really based on relationships. Relationships matter. You'll hear us keep saying that over and over and over again. So this is not the end of our media boot camp. It's the beginning of our relationship, but really just taking a focus on media and other attributes of the project that will help you in the future. So we continue to talk about programming. We continue to talk about data management. We continue to talk about all of those things that make this immunization trusted messenger machine work. So we're very excited and want to thank each and every one of you all for joining us today in the Good Health Wins Media Bootcamp. A special thank you to Mr. Johannes, who is our Director of Communication, who is running the show at headquarters and making all things media work. We really appreciate you. We thank you for helping us to adjust. Even, so many of us are used to being on the Zoom platform and moving over to a webinar. So we don't take anything for granted, and really appreciate all that you're doing in your team at headquarters and your dynamic staff. Thank you for that. Special thank you to Faith Colas. First of all, thank you for being a great friend, for being willing to always, after you came off air, to jump on this call, help us today so that we can really understand. And as we said, you're soft spoken, but we know you're a mighty force in the world of media, and really want to thank you for helping us to understand, especially the print side of this and the radio side and TV. So
Before
again,
you sign off, I got a couple of tips. A couple of things at housekeeping that we want to talk about, because I know you're about to shut us down, because you've always been very time sensitive. First of all, if you are doing something on social media, make sure that you tag NCNW. Make sure you tag GHW Wins. Make sure you tag Vaccinate Your Family, because that cross tagging gets the message out further. We can retweet you. We can tag it. We can put it in our stories as well. Simultaneously, if you're doing a media advisory or a news release, make sure you email it to social@ncnw.org. Make sure you email it to info@vaccinateyourfamily.org, because again, we can push it out to our networks. So it makes it longer and it goes further than just your network, because we're all doing it together. Which brings me to what I've been asked to do by our executive director, Ms. Mathis, is that she likes us to create our own Twitter storms to counteract what's going on. So you will be receiving some information, because we're going to have our own Twitter storm on Friday, October 1st, about vaccines, the flu, and you.
yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
we'll be
great.
giving you some graphics. We'll be giving you some information on that. I will get with our partners here to make sure that in the toolkit, you will see graphics, you will see information, so that we're going to pick a time of day, and all of us across the board can actually create that Twitter storm to counteract some of the information that's out there.
Excellent,
And I'll
excellent.
also listen to Mr. Wald and Ms. Colas. So you see me on camera now, even though I couldn't
That
do
wasn't
tech
for
and
you. That wasn't for
I
you.
couldn't do the tech. No, it's for everybody, and you must learn from everyone. I couldn't do the tech and
Yes,
talk at
sir.
the same time, so
Right.
I
Yes,
had to
that's
stop
right.
and say, okay, let me stop now and do my part, because as you want to see, like you see regular camera, what I'm in every day, but I want it to look like the authority I'm supposed to be being on here.
Thank you, Mr. J.
Thank you, Mr. Johannes. And thank you for all of those wonderful tips. And as you all can see, again, it's just another example of how we're all in it together. Because, you know, no one's the one expert, is that we are all doing a compilation of pulling this off together. And I also want to say thank you to Erica DeWall. You know, Erica, we've been together for day one with this Good Health Wins and helping this come to life through the wonderful, wonderful leadership of our executive director, Ms. Mathis, you know, and being able to pull together a team and all of these groups and organizations and giving us the support, whether it be from headquarters staff all the way, you know, down to the work that we've been able to do as project manager. This has just been a wonderful example of, again, of how we are better together. And so, Erica, thank you for that whole focus around social media. Thank you for the daily clips. Thank you for helping us to understand this new immunization ecosystem and what that world looks like around understanding vaccines, because it's not just, you know, right now we're all focused on COVID-19, you know, but we eventually want to be able to talk about the importance of immunizations across the lifespan. We want to be able to talk about how this all impacts health equity and the disparities that we have to fundamentally get to the bottom of. So, Erica, thank you. Any closing remarks that you or Faith want to make?
I just want to
No,
thank you for the opportunity to share some of my experience and expertise with the audience. And I learned a lot from Erica, from Mr. J, and Synovia. It's been a wonderful 30 years.
thank you. Thank you so much. I learned so much from all of you every day, and the child's getting restless, so thank you. This is perfect timing.
All right. Well, again, to everyone who's listened today, thank you for joining our media boot camp for Good Health Wins. As we shared, this is the beginning. This, you know, work that we're doing, again, is a heavy lift. And I really, really continue to say thanks to Ms. Ajwa Osei, who is our NCNW program administrator. You may not see her, but I trust me, you feel her and you experience the way that she's able to keep us all connected through the communications. And I also want to thank each and every one of our NCNW, our state leaders. Thank you for stepping up and leading your state organizations with our phenomenal NCNW sections, as well as our national network partners and our national affiliates. This work is important because together we have the opportunity to save lives. We as trusted messengers, we have a responsibility to continue to live out our missions of community service. We do it day in and day out, and we're just thankful that we have the opportunity to do this through Good Health Wins. Thanks to each and every one of you all for your time today, for the beginning of expanded conversations around media relations, mass communications, etc. I'm asking you all to do one thing, and that is to share this information with somebody within your organization or within your community. Make one phone call, do one tweet, be a part of our social media storm. Most importantly, in order for this work to win, we have to do something. We can no longer sit back and be quiet because we have lives at stake. Thank you all for being a part of our social media boot camp. Thank you to all of our panelists. And we pray that everyone continues to be safe. And if you've not already done it, please get a vaccine. Thank you and have a blessed day. Thanks. Bye-bye.